For those of you who don't know me, my background is as a dairy vet, and I was in practice for many years. And after foot and mouth and a midlife crisis, I decided that I would go and do something different. And I have been doing various things since, all linked to technology transfer. I'm currently working with the digital dairy chain as an innovation broker. So I put together projects and try and make things happen. So two adverts to start with. First of all, this Pneumonitor project started as one of our first innovation vouchers. And we're coming probably to the last round of our innovation vouchers, which closes on November the 27th. So if you have any ideas or anything that you would like to explore, then do get in touch with us, and we'll see if we can develop something with you. The vouchers work as £10,000 to be spent at Strathclyde University or at SIUC to develop your idea into something. So, but do get in contact, and if you want to do that, that's great. The other one is the Think Dairy event, which is at the H&H Auction Mart on the 30th of September. This is part of what we do as Digital Dairy Chain to try and encourage new entrants into the dairy industry. So it's aimed at secondary school pupils from the surrounding areas to come and hear about different jobs in the dairy industry, from accountants milking cows, AI technicians, right through to making cheese and processing and all that side of things. So do think about those. If you want more information is available on our website. So just a reminder then, please mute your microphones. If you've got any questions, please put them in the chat function, and we will have a discussion after we've finished the webinar this morning. And just a reminder that we are recording this, so a recording will be available afterwards if you want to share it with colleagues. So the outline will be a quick introduction to the digital dairy chain, and then we'll look at how this project developed, and then the main part of the seminar will be from Isaac Orr, who is running Pneumonitor and looking at how it can be used to measure the calf microclimate and reduce pneumonia. So the first part is then an introduction to the digital dairy chain. What is the digital dairy chain? So it's a UKRI Strength in Places funded project. It's focused on South and West Scotland and Cumbria. It's looking to develop digital connectivity along the whole of the dairy production line, from knocking in posts right through to production at the end. The aim is to stimulate research and development and to facilitate business growth, with the aim of attracting new talent and skills into the industry and into the area. The Strength in Places is part of the old government's levelling up agenda, so it's very much jobs focused and attracting new jobs and new skills to the area. So how have we been doing this? We have 8 different work packages. So one of that's Workforce for the Future, which is part of the H&H Think Dairy event, is part of that. But it's a whole thing looking at what are the skills that are going to be needed in the next 20 years. The other areas are the STEM engagement with schools, then the Milk Round Technology Accelerator, which is looking to develop new apps, new widgets, new design things for anything to do with dairy. There's £10,000 of engineering time, and anything that you want to develop, we can help you develop that through Strathclyde University. There are 2 makerspaces to develop new products from dairy products. So one is based in Ayr College, and the other one is based at Appleby at the creamery there at Cows & Co. And that's to develop new ideas or new things, or to help people start producing cheese or yogurt or butter or milk. So again, if you've got an idea and want to explore that, come and talk to us. We've had 2 R&D capacity building collaborative R&D rounds, and we've got the New Dairy Nexus at Barony College to build capacity and build new research in the area. We've also looked at supply chain digitalization, so looking at smart farm. So Barony College Farm has been made into a digital twin with a lot of monitoring to show what's going on. We've also been working with various partners to look at smart logistics and look at smart production. So actually looking at the energy, looking at the connectivity, and trying to get the whole chain talking to each other. I'm part of the innovation brokerage team, so I actually work with my colleagues. Sorry, that's my phone going off. I had meant to put on silent. I'm part of the innovation brokerage team, so I help put together projects, explore things, and are the first point of contact for the digital dairy chain. It's made up of lots of partners. SRUC and Strathclyde and University of the West of Scotland are the academic partners, and then we've got industry partners to help bring things together. So where did this idea come from? This idea came from 2 vets talking about how can we measure calf environment better, because using smoke bombs and using temperature humidity in sheds gave some data, but it wasn't very useful. Now from that, we sort of worked with the Spatria Farmers as the lead, with Colab Engineering, which is a design and engineering company based in Whitehaven. And together with SRUC and the University of Strathclyde, we put together a project for an innovation voucher. And that innovation voucher was looking at this as the proposed solution. A ruggedized monitor to measure humidity, temperature, and wind speed, to measure over weeks and months, and then develop a dashboard to give the data that meant something to people and that people could actually use as something to actually develop mitigation techniques, and then monitor what effects those mitigation techniques had had. To give something for advisors to actually use to work with farmers to improve the environment that the calves are in. So this has now been commercialized. And I'm going to hand over to Isaac Orr. So please do put any questions in the chat, and we'll have a discussion afterwards. So Isaac, are you ready to share your slides, please?
Thank you very much, Mike. Yes, just give me a second to pull it up. There we go. Can you see that lovely thing?
That's great. Thanks very much, Isaac. Away you go.
Thank you. So yes, Pneumonitor is all about monitoring the environment inside the cow pen, the microclimate these animals actually experience. A little bit of background about me, family farm in Northern Ireland where I spent my summers, but a software engineer by trade, so maybe a slightly more comfortable desk job. But yeah, let's get into it. So we always talk about pneumonia as a problem which costs a lot of money to individual farmers, but actually when you look across the UK and EU, it is a massive problem. It's £500 million a year it's costing in lost yields, veterinary fees, and dead animals. And we use drugs to treat it quite often, but the environment is such a massive indicator of pneumonia incidence and severity. We talk about THI for heat stress, but it's so much more than that. Humidity has a massive impact, temperature does, but also wind speed, ammonia in the air. There's so many factors that traditionally we kind of know about, we're told about, but we don't really have the tools to properly analyze and see what's going on. And pneumonia is incredibly prevalent. So 36% of US dairy replacement heifers in a massive study, it was like 4,000 animals, had pneumonia in the first 120 days. That's crazy high. There was a study in the UK that was 45% of animals had it. That's an insane kind of prevalence across these farms that we don't talk about because it's subclinical. And this is when the disease doesn't progress to showing these visible symptoms that allow you to identify it. So, the nose is something's off or the animal's behavior has changed. But actually, once the disease takes hold, it can damage the lungs and then stop and not progress any further. So the animals just aren't as productive. It's kind of crazy, these numbers. Like some farms, yeah, that one 77% incidence of pneumonia once they did postmortems. That's insane to think about how much more that one farm could be producing. And these subclinical cases still have a massive impact. So if an animal gets to 23 weeks of age and it's had pneumonia, it could be up to 10 kilos lighter than a calf that wasn't sick. That is a massive, massive difference in a beef unit. And then calving period can be pushed. So quite often it's about a month if an animal gets pneumonia or not, just in delayed readiness. But it can go up to 3 months, which if you're trying to run a very tight schedule, that is a problem. And then in dairy herds, the first lactation is almost always reduced at an average of 120 litres, but it can be much higher, up to 500. These have very direct financial impacts to a farm beyond just the veterinary fees, your drugs, or the kind of headache of having to go around, treat everything, and keep on top of it. There are significant lost yields. And it is caused by a variety of environmental conditions. So we talk about high temperature and how heat stress is a massive thing for animals, and it absolutely is, but it's so much more than that. It's actually low temperature and high humidity is more dangerous because the animal's still stressed at these low temperatures, but the high humidity just means there's so much more disease in the air, the bacteria and the viruses. And it's just trying to monitor all these things together at the same time is nearly impossible. Ammonia is a really, really important factor that is recently getting talked about a lot more, but hasn't been historically, with a recent study showing that 4 parts per million of ammonia in the air is dangerous to calf lungs and starts to create consolidations. But the human nose can only detect from 5 parts per million. And if a farmer is frequently exposed to ammonia, their sensitivity decreases over time. So you cannot smell when the environment is bad for your animals. That's a crazy problem to have. You're unable to observe these dangerous conditions. And then we talk about wind. So stale air is bad if it's not moving around, you're getting bacterial buildup, virus buildup, the animals are more likely to get sick. But if the wind is too quick, then the animals get stressed, they get chilled, and they get sick again. So you have a really, really narrow window depending on the animal's age. Kind of a newborn calf, you're talking when you combine the wind speeds with the temperatures, it's about a 9-degree temperature range that's safe. That's that's wild. That's if it's at about 2 meters a second wind. There are so many factors, and it's really quite difficult to track them all and actually do something about it. So why not use existing tools out there? What makes Pneumonitor special? You have to be in the pen to get useful metrics. So SRUC did a lovely study where they had sensors at different heights in a pen, inside the pen, just in the shed. You're seeing about a 1.7 degree temperature difference, which when your safe range is kind of 5 to 9 degrees, 1.7 is actually quite significant. Humidity varies a significant amount as well across those levels. So at calf lying height, the humidity can be 30% higher than where kind of a human nose would be. That is very, very significant range. And absolutely significant to the health of the calf, not just it's a big number. And also getting data out of a pen is quite difficult. Traditional sensors are not calf proof, shall we say. You can try and make adjustments, put nice metal cages around it, but in this study, nearly half of the sensors broke throughout the trial or just stopped recording. And it's not easy. And then you've got to take the sensors out, you've got to try and connect into them somehow, pull the data out, analyze it. It's always a bit, I don't want to say archaic, but it's not an easy experience. It's not an easy way for you to say, oh, this is what's going wrong right now and do something about it. So that is why we built the Pneumonitor, and here's a lovely one in my hands. It's an in-pen microclimate sensor, so it allows us to see exactly what the animals are experiencing in real time. Right now it measures temperature and humidity, which are the massive ones. We also do pressure, but to be honest, we've not found anything very exciting from that. And relative air quality. So there's a group of compounds called volatile organic compounds, and it's what your indoor air quality sensor will have in your home. But we do that in the pen, and it's a really good proxy for just how saturated the air is. This is all plug and play. So the idea is to be as simple as possible to get this information. So if you buy a new keyboard or mouse for your computer at home, you just plug it in and it works. We liked that and we went one step further. So you don't plug this in at all. You turn it on and it starts working. There's a massive amount of battery packs in it. It's kind of 5 iPhones worth, which means it's a nightmare to post around. Lots of carriers won't take it. And it's mobile data based. So once you've turned it on, it's transmitting and it'll transmit for kind of 2 to 3 months, depending on what the weather's like. So you can get real quick, actionable insights as soon as it happens. We thought there would be some connectivity problems, but there just hasn't been. We've been quite smart about how we do it. We use all the networks. It's very low amount of data. We've been in places where my phone says there's no signal, but these still send it through no problem. So we're very, very happy about that because that was a big concern. There are real-time alerts, like I said. So it monitors the heat, the temperature, the humidity, all these things. And if they cross a threshold, it sends you a text so you can go and solve the problem right there and then. So if pen 3 is getting way too humid, you can go and change the bedding or turn on a fan and open a side panel or something to fix it before it leads to disease. And we built quite a few of these. Some of them are on farm today, and we're getting really quite cool insights from them, and some that we didn't expect. Mike kind of said at the start this was an innovation project led by Spectre Farmers and Collab Engineering, and it was coming from vets wanting to know what was actually going on. They did try to use traditional monitors, and they just weren't getting the kind of accuracy of the data, the spread of the data, and things were not surviving in the pen. And Spectre Farmers just kind of wanted to tackle this, see what was going on, and see if there could be something that could legitimately help their farmers. So they built a unit. The sensors on the left and the middle are kind of typical off-the-shelf things you can buy, and this is in a barn. And then on the right is a very early prototype of ours, just to see, are we getting any kind of valid data? Because this was a whole device we had to build. The sensing bit is kind of the final sign-off. And the answer is we got really good results, better than those off-the-shelf sensors. So we have we selected the components that were by far the most expensive, but seemed to be the most effective. Our humidity readings at high levels are more accurate than those other sensors, and that's generally because those sensors are meant for in your home or kind of nice, happy environments. Cow pens are not happy environments. You will have massive humidity swings, massive temperature swings, and generally much higher humidity. And that was where our unit really shone. So at about 80% humidity, the other sensors kind of cap out, whereas ours kept going and was getting really good, accurate results. That was the initial dashboard. Not very pretty, but very useful. But that was kind of a test. Does the device work? And that's cool from an engineering perspective, but is it valuable for the farmer? So we built a bunch of them. As you can see, it's quite complicated inside, and I am a software engineer, not a hardware engineer. Thankfully, my business partner is. So it was a very big learning experience for me, shall I say. We built 10 of them, and we stuck some of them in a farm as part of the SRUC project up in Lockerbie to do some analysis on the pens because they had a historic pneumonia problem. The first question is, did they survive in an actual cow pen? Yes, they did. So the kind of rule we go with is if the animals cannot lick it, it is not in the right place. It needs to be where the animals are, where they are breathing, so that we can get accurate measurements. Yes, that means they get rather beat up visually, but they're still perfectly functional, perfectly fine. There were a couple of iterations to make it a bit more robust for the cow pen, but we did get there. And connectivity, like I said, was a major concern. This particular farm, my phone says absolutely not. I have to drive about 10 minutes away before I can place a phone call. But our system works. We got data all the time, and it was useful, timely, valuable. And how useful was it? So this farm had a historic pneumonia problem. Unfortunately for our timing, it got so bad that they started vaccinating every incoming calf. So this study was a little bit less representative than we were hoping for, but it was still useful. The biggest unexpected insight we got was the variation across the shed. So this is a big, long shed. It's about 100 meters long. And we put a sensor at one end, a sensor at the other, and one in the middle. And we thought they'd be pretty homogeneous. Like the shed design doesn't change. It's one big block. However, those two lines you can see, the green one and the blue one in that top graph, are the humidities over time. And they track, they both go up at the same time, they both go down at the same time. But at some points, they've got a 20% variance in humidity between the sheds. That is the difference between a safe level, like 60, and an unsafe level, 80. That's why actually their shed overall was okay, but their historic pneumonia problem was coming from one end of the shed, the wet alley almost. And then this little table beneath is really, really interesting. I think it's my favorite thing to come out of this. So this is a table of the temperature conditions in the pen that had the problem that did still get pneumonia even when these animals were vaccinated. And what's crazy is the humidity, the average humidity for the week before the first kind of incidence of disease in this pen was almost always 90% or above with low temperatures. And this is an area that we are not talking about enough when it comes to disease risk. Historically, we've been, high temperature is really bad, high temperature, high humidity is really bad, lots of wind really bad. But actually, cold, wet air is stressing the animals so much and is so loaded with disease that even when animals are vaccinated, it's still really not good. But what do you do with this information? So we could tell you in advance, oh, it's been really humid for 2 days in a row, but do you have to go and change the bedding? Do you have to go turn your fans on? And the answer right now is yes, but that's not good from a farmer's perspective. You already have enough things you got to do. We're well aware of that. So what we're building as well is a device which will allow us to become the Google Home for the cow shed. I don't know if any of you have Google Home or Alexas at home when you get them to turn on your light bulbs or something. We're doing that for the infrastructure you already have in your sheds. So if you have any fans, any side panels, any heaters, we're building a smart relay to connect into those to allow us to turn them on and off based off our sensor readings. So no longer are you getting a text that says, oh, pen 3 is way too hot or way too humid. Now we're saying, oh, pen 3 is way too hot and humid, but we've opened the side panel, we've turned on the fans, and we'll turn it off again later when it gets back to a safe level. And by doing this, we can really reduce, at least that's our thesis, reduce the disease incidence in these pens and protect the animals. We're doing it with a smart relay approach now, so we can hack into kind of existing devices. If something has an on-off switch, we will be able to control it. But we're also looking for kind of willing OEMs already, existing manufacturers, to integrate with them in the long run. And the idea here, again, is standalone. So you wire our device into the circuit, and that's it. Like it draws enough power from that, it runs off mobile data. So everything's quite simple, easy. Your shed can become a smart shed. Why does this matter now? It has never been a more important time to try and get the environment correct to prevent disease. The EU's on a massive thing about trying to reduce antibiotic usage on farm. Everyone knows about it, 25% reduction over the last 10 years. They've mandated another 25%. Prophylactic antibiotics are now banned in the EU, which is one of the most common tools for trying to fight pneumonia. And there's similar regulations coming in here. There's a lot of pressure to bring in some other rules on reducing the usage. We'll see what actually comes through. But if you can get the environment right, you really can reduce your kind of drug application. And that's just a really exciting and positive way to try and treat these animals in a preventative way rather than reactive. As I'm sure you all know, the supermarkets are requiring more and more data from these farms, these antibiotic reviews you have to do, and some drugs you have to justify every single treatment because they're so protected. If you can just get the environment right, you can get rid of a lot of that work, a lot of that paperwork that takes up your time. And these treatments are expensive, especially if an animal needs multiple doses or if an animal unfortunately passes away. You've spent a lot of money getting it to that point. Prevent this by putting in a system that controls the shed and stops the environment getting dangerous in the first place. Back a bit to all the stuff we've been doing. So we built that kind of early version. I said temperature, humidity, air quality, pressure, and we put it in some sheds. We did have to do some iterations to the mount to make it suitable for older animals. So I'll just grab one here. We had to put a nice little protective ring that slots over it here because once the hard pallet develops, it got a little bit close, but it's fine. No animals were harmed. And now we're pretty confident it can handle up to about 8 months of age. There's an approach we have if it's older than that, but please let us know if you're going to do that. Working with University of Strathclyde, which was another innovation voucher from the digital dairy chain, we were able to add wind speed monitoring to the device, which is incredible. The traditional approaches of measuring wind speed, the spinny cup, try and get that to survive a calf pen for more than 30 seconds. It's not happening. And the other approach is a hot wire anemometer, which I'm not putting a 100-degree wire inside a flammable calf pen with lots of straw. So we built our own way working with the university. We stole their wind tunnel for a week, very kindly, thank you. Did a lot of data analysis, and we now have a way to predict wind speed. It is wonderful in controlled environments, so like in a nice house with generally still air and it's just people moving around. But in calf environments, it's not quite as precise as we'd like it right now. So for certain users, we've enabled gust detection. It says it's very windy or a little bit windy or no wind at all. But as we gather more data from more on-farm deployments, we're very confident that will kind of wrap up into back being accurate in a calf pen, because the levels of safe wind speeds are very precise. I think AHDB recommend between 0.2 meters a second and 0.8 meters a second. It's crazy difficult to try and have that as a constant in your sheds. If it's wind coming through, if you've got fans on, trying to balance all these different components. And that's why we're really excited for this automation piece. We can control all those things in a balance and see over time what actually works best on your farm. And the other thing we got a lot of was ammonia monitoring. So we've added it to our device. It should be available in the next couple of weeks. A very new addition, very, very exciting. The traditional approaches for monitoring ammonia outside of farming use these lovely sensors that are highly accurate, but cannot survive in a background radiation of ammonia. So their lifetime is measured in parts per million hours. And given the average cow shed is about 2 parts per million, most sensors will die within 3 days of exposure. That's not a great user experience. So the other approach on cow sheds is a vacuum tube. So you open it, take a reading, shut it, pump out all the air so the sensor survives. Also not doing that. We want something that is rugged and can survive being in a cow pen. Having an opening and shutting vacuum door, that's not going to work. So we've got a whole new way of doing it, got a lovely sensor partner, and we're very excited to be the first people to do in-pen ammonia monitoring that can survive being in the pen and not just outside of it, because just like temperature, humidity, or wind speed, you need to be in the pen for these accurate readings. And we've had a lot of cool interest. So we have looked at all these papers that has said, you know, here's what the safe levels are, but how do you actually kind of relate that to the animal's performance? These studies are done on big farms. They're normally international. Our studies on this aren't big enough in the UK, in my opinion. So we're trying to become that person who links the in-pen environment conditions with automated scoring. There's a couple of grants in. So there's a couple of DOPT grants we're doing and a KTIF. Hopefully those all get approved, fingers crossed, that will look at combining vet animal scoring with the environmental conditions and try and doing a link so we can make it much more compelling. Same for kind of camera-based automated scoring, which is very exciting. We can get that linked up. And also this retrofitting of the shed, the automation, that is in development at the minute. And we've got a couple of farms lined up to be our test beds for that through another digital dairy chain project, which is very, very exciting. How do you use this information valuably then? So there is a website, a lovely dashboard that I'll show you in 2 seconds that you can log into and see the kind of historic values over time as well as the latest readings. But everyone wanted an app. Everyone wants something straight to their phone. They can pull it out and just see, oh, I have a hunch that something might be a bit weird in the shed today, and see the data right there and then with them. This also means we can use like little notifications on your phone, like when you get a Facebook friend request. Very excited about that because paying for text is expensive. There was one vet who put a unit in a farm that every single day it spent 6 hours in dangerous temperature and humidity conditions, and it was just constantly sending them texts, and that went through a budget quite quickly. So we've built an app so we can send notifications, and they'll be you can just tap it and see what's going on in that shed at the moment in time. In fact, let me just try and share that screen to show you the dashboard. There we go. So this is a unit that I just carry with me, mainly out of interest to see the environment I'm in. So at the top, we have kind of the current temperature, humidity, and then THI, we calculate that. This is actually from, I think about a month ago when I was at the Digital Dairy Nexus up in the SRUC Barony campus. Very nice little bump in temperature here at midday. I wonder if that's when lunch was served and everyone came into the tent. Same for kind of humidity started high because we were on grass and it was dewy, but then throughout the day it went down significantly. And there's THI, and then the air quality, it got a bit bad as everyone came in around lunch, but then kind of lowered down again. We're adding this gust sensing, so this unit was only up for a couple of hours and it was inside, so there weren't any gusts, unfortunately. But there's a lovely nice table and it shows you exact timestamps they happened. It's really nice to be able to pull this up and just look at what's going on. And then yeah, you can go see other farms, but I won't show you other people's data. Let me pull back up the slides. Here we go. So yeah, this, like I said, we got the app coming up. That will be hopefully the next 2 weeks. Very, very excited about that. Right now, it's just going to show you the data and give you the alerts. But really, we want it also to be the manual override for your fans. So if you put in the smart relay device, which turns them on and off automatically, great. If you have a hunch that something needs to be done, you can open the app and turn your fans on from anywhere. It's really nice, allowing you to just fully automate your cow shed or control it. You can make anything smart in it. Slide change broken. There we go. Yeah, so for farmers, this is all about knowing exactly what is happening to your animals. It's about saying, I have a hunch something is wrong in this pen, but I don't know what it is. And frequently it's not what you expect. It could be, oh yeah, it's massive temperature swings every day. If it's more than 10 degrees within a day, you're probably stressing your animals. You don't really know that unless you've got a unit in the pen, because the pens can get a lot hotter than the shed generally. They can also get colder somehow. Not entirely sure how that works. The traditional kind of approach on temperature as well was that calves, because they're not producing milk, they don't get stressed as much. They do. There's a lot more research coming out saying that they do. So you really do need to monitor all these things. With these alerts, even if you don't have the automated system and you just go for the units, you can still go and save your animals before they get sick. And hopefully over time, as more and more alerts come in, you can build up a picture of, actually, I know specifically what's wrong with this shed, and make the long-term fixes that protect the animals. And yeah, if you do get the automation bit, wonderful. It allows you to just prevent or significantly reduce disease in the shed. If your environment is constantly monitored, constantly optimized, there is no better way to try and prevent disease than just making sure it's not present and your animals are not stressed. For vets, this is all about providing hard data for the farmers. It's one thing to go in and say, oh, it's just a bad environment in here. But if you're able to put in a device that then gives you a nice table, nice graph, nice data that you can walk the farmer through and link it to disease incidents like we did earlier with the kind of humidity in the week before, you can show actually very specifically what the problems are and targeted interventions to fix them. Because the monitor doesn't need any wiring in, any connectivity, you can just move it between farms. You can put it on a farm for a month or two, do the consult and figure out what's wrong, help that farm, and then stick it in another one and help another farm. And then this is all about good stewardship, just trying to reduce antibiotic usage, try and fight back the resistance a bit longer. And yeah, that is it. Join the movement. We love a pun. This is all about being preventative and being in pen. This is about diagnosing the pen and getting the environment right before it affects the animal. There's a lot of solutions out there today that monitor the animal, and that is great. But by that point, it's too late. As soon as the animal has changed, it's already sick, it's already lost yields, it's already lost growth rates. This is about trying to get the environment right so the animal doesn't get sick in the first place. That's just a QR code to a contact us bit in the website if you want to take any of this offline. But I think if we've got any questions, I've whizzed through my bit, but I think I covered it all.
Thanks, Isaac. I don't think we've got anything in the chat, but I think with the numbers, I think if anybody wants to raise their hand, please do, and feel free to ask a question.
I hope that was a somewhat useful overview of what we are and how we got here. No.
Any questions? I have a question, Isaac. Once the device is in, is it envisaged that it will just stay in there permanently, or
Yeah, we're pretty confident that they can survive long term in these pens. The longest deployment to date has been about 9 months,
Okay.
but they came back perfectly functional, if a bit worse for wear, shall we say. But yes, for the automation piece especially, we expect these just to be in. But if a vet wants to move them around as part of a consultancy package, it's very easy to do so. Those units we showed were drilled in, but actually you can, if you use the right zip ties, and please ask me before you do this, you can actually have it survive if it's a pen with really young animals, and then it's as easy as a pair of scissors to move it around.
Brilliant. Great. We've got a question from John Berezowski.
Yes, thanks, Isaac. It was a really interesting presentation. A cool tool, I would say. And it sounds like you're applying for grants to demonstrate the effectiveness of that, right?
Yes, farmers always know that we've said these environments are bad and they lead to disease, but I think it's one thing to tell people that, and it's another thing to say, look, this specific device, we have tied it towards the long-term outcomes of these animals. It's really important just to have that kind of follow through.
Right. Can you just describe that a little bit? What are you planning with that? It
Yes.
seems to me that economics, it wouldn't just be mortality and morbidity. So I'm interested in what.
So that is absolutely, those are kind of the key ones, and they're the most visible outcomes. But one of the grants we're doing is with a camera vision system that monitors animals' behavior over time, and that's on a farm that also weighs the animals very regularly. So we're hoping, instead of just tying to kind of morbidity, we're going to say, look, here are animals that were in a pen or a shed that was slightly worse conditions, and look at their growth rates and how it differs. Because yeah, it's all about lactation, it's all about growth. It's not just these kind of worst case scenarios. The amount of subclinical incidents, especially in the UK, is massive.
Right, and are you also going to look at milk consumption in those pens as well?
We haven't got a project for that right now, but it is something we want to look at. Yes, feed intake, colostrum intake. We'll get there one day.
Amounts of data for that. I could see those two tying together.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions.
Great. We have another question on the chat. Do the alerts provide any prompts for interventions? For example, opening sides, turning fans on for those without automation?
They don't right now, but that is something that once the app is released, we're trying to make it. So right now it's a text message, and I didn't want to overload that message. But once the app comes out, it'll be tap it that, oh, this pen seems way too humid, and then it'll give you a little kind of guide that you can tap through to see what the solutions are, depending on what your setup is. And as you kind of put in what your farm has, the guide will be a lot more tailored.
Can I just jump in on that? One of the things is that this is much about initially getting the data. So the initial thing is getting the data, and then once you know that the environment's not right, you can work with vets and advisors to actually, improve it and then monitor the improvement. So, it is a monitoring device that you can then use to actually work out which mitigations are working. So if it's high humidity, can you improve the drainage? Can you put in sand into the bedding? Can you put in sawdust into the bedding? Can you increase the amount of bedding going in, increase the turnover time? There's lots of different things you can do, and that will vary from pen to pen, from farm to farm. So it will vary quite a lot, I think. But it gives the data. That's the important thing, and then you can monitor whatever you do. You can monitor and see whether it improves.
That exactly what Mike is saying about those kind of solutions. So the kind of flowchart options that would take you through, you can tick off things you've tried before, things that just aren't applicable.
Great. We've got a hands up from Andy.
Hi, Isaac. Thank you for the presentation, Matt, and super project. It looks really cool, what you're doing. I have two questions. One is, you talk about subclinical sort of disease and things like that. Have you got any sort of biological validation on that front? Go on. I'll let you go first with that one.
But not tied to the specific study we were on, but there's a lot of research out there that directly ties subclinical incidents and all these kind of negative outcomes.
Sure
I can send you some cool sources.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. And then the other thing as well is that, are you still open for doing collaborations? Because this is quite interesting for a project we've got going on that's a farming innovation program one. So I'd be interested to speak to you a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to speak to anyone. We love putting these out there and actually finding cool insights.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. I've got another set of questions here from Joanne. How did you make sure your readings were accurate if you claim the other pieces of equipment capped?
Yes,
Oh,
for the kind of early
yeah.
stage testing,
Yeah.
we just got a couple of other, they have data sheets that say where they cap out that we didn't realize until after the testing. So we got some that capped higher. Well, did the full range that weren't capped, and we tied our unit to them.
Second question is also, you mentioned battery powered. Can they be recharged if plugged in? What's the electricity usage?
Yes, so they're battery powered and rechargeable. It's USB-C, just like your phone. You just take the lid off and there's a little charging port, plug it in. It does take a while given there's a lot of battery in there. But yeah, just leave it for kind of 5-6 hours. It'll charge up and then you're good for another 2-3 months. We don't do kind of plugged in units for the monitor just because we don't want cables in a pen. This is all about getting readings in a pen and I don't want to run electricity through that.
Another question from Ian. What is the unit cost? Do you install or do you use the Spatria Farmers? What is the total system cost?
Yep. So each monitor has kind of an upfront unit cost, which is currently about 750 plus VAT. That does include kind of the lifetime of the unit though. So the mobile data connectivity, we cover that. The dashboard access, you don't have to pay for that. That's all part of that initial purchase price. The total unit cost, kind of system cost, we're still figuring out as part of developing that automation platform. It's still kind of early days on that. It should be ready for Q1, end of Q1 next year. We're very, very excited to try and get that in, especially over summer for kind of more heat stress angle. Although I talked down heat stress earlier, it is still very important. That we're unsure of, to be honest. We envision each kind of automation device to be a bit cheaper than this, around 400 or 500, but we will see. That's definitely not set in stone.
Sorry, I didn't follow that, Isaac. You're across the figures more than I am. So it's 750, and you get a lifetime of mobile data and a lifetime of dashboard access.
Yes.
And you can have multiple. I'm right in thinking you can have multiple dashboards. So one unit can be put on one farm, and that farm's data's there, and then you can have another dashboard for you move it, and you have another dashboard.
Exactly, yes. So we have concepts of farms in the dashboard, so you can link multiple units into one farm, so you can see kind of across different areas what the environment's like, and you can add people to that farm. So a vet could set it up and then pull in the farmer or pull in other vets and kind of share that information with them. But then once you're off that farm, you can just deregister the unit, register it to another one. It's 3 clicks on the dashboard. It's really simple.
Okay.
We've got another question. Are there good published thresholds for humidity in UK calf sheds in terms of preventing respiratory disease already, or is this what you're trying to do?
There's not good thresholds for humidity in the UK. There's a couple in Belgium, which is what we are trying to see if that holds up here. So yeah, that is one of the things we're trying to get out of one of these research projects. The UK data is always just temperature and isn't big enough, in my opinion. They don't cover enough farms. Oh, I don't have them to hand, but I can find the paper and pull it and check it and send it to you. It's a really good paper, that one I'm thinking of.
Just additional, what are the thresholds from Belgium?
Yeah, no, I don't remember what they are, but I'll send it across. I've got them somewhere.
Do you have any of these papers on the website, Isaac?
We link to some papers that link BRD to these negative outcomes. So in the news section on the website, there's a good article that basically says if your animals are sick, they will produce less milk, they will grow slower, and that this is a really big problem. We haven't linked to that nice Belgian one or these thresholds, but we will pull that in. The other thing is, so those alert thresholds that we currently have, we use what the AHDB numbers are, which are really good for temperature, good for wind speed. I don't think they have a humidity one, so I think we based it off maybe the Belgian paper or something else, but they're all editable. So if you think you know better than us, which you probably do. We build cool technology. I'm not a vet or really a farmer. I just spend my summers on the family farm. Then you can change those and you will get alerts based on what you think is most accurate.
Okay. Any more questions from the group?
No worries. If not, I'm always very happy to take anything. If everyone ever wants to reach out, I'll put a link to the contact us page.
Just an advert there from Joanna Brands from SIUC, that they are building a THI live platform across the UK. That's looking at adult cow sites, and it's looking at measuring shed THI levels for adult animals, not calves. But again, that's a very useful website to actually look at THI measurements, very much looking at heat stress in dairy cows and growing animals, rather than in calves, where stress and pneumonia and low temperatures is probably more important. If there's, are there any more questions or any more discussion? If not, if you want to get in contact with the Digital Dairy Chain, Mark Robertson's put his contacts in there for any new products and for the maker spaces, so do get in contact with him. If you don't know who to get in contact with the Digital Dairy Chain, do come and speak to me or Rachel. We're the innovation vouchers, and we're the sort of go-to point and lead. Sorry, there's another question there about scour in calves. Is there a noticeable increase for scour in calves when there is pneumonia? Has this product been shown to be able to prevent that? Any sort of stress on calves from the environment will decrease their immunity, and you will get an increase in scour or pneumonia. The environment is probably more, from my vet perspective, I would think pneumonia is more of a problem from the environment than scour. But again, monitoring and getting the environment right will reduce your scour levels as well. So I hope that helps, Morgan. We haven't done any work on scours, partly because it's more intermittent, so you would need a large study to probably look at that. But again, any stress on a calf will increase scour rates and things like that. Any last questions? Any last hands raised before we call the end of the meeting? I just want to thank everybody for attending, and any questions on Pneumonitor, do get in touch with Isaac on pneumonitor.farm, and if you want to get in touch with the Digital Dairy Chain, do get in touch with myself via the website at the Digital Dairy Chain or my email from the slides. We will be sending out a link to the recording, so do please feel free to share that with colleagues. And we will be doing some more webinars in the future, looking at some other projects. So do keep an eye out for those as well. Thank you very much for coming, and I look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.